2020 has finally come to a close, and I'm looking to set my 2021 hobby goals. Here are my tips for setting realistic hobby goals for your new year. Hi, I'm Katie, and welcome back to Nerdic Inspiration, the place where we create, paint, learn, and discuss the nerdiest of things in the coolest of ways. Welcome back. Goals make sure that we show up and show out. Setting SMART goals means that we can stay on track and minimize excuses. A lot of people have no trouble spending time doing chores, errands, or going to their job, but they feel kind of guilty about doing their hobbies. Well, if you create a goal for your hobby and you have a way to track and measure that goal, then you'll feel a lot better devoting time to actually complete it. When you're setting a goal, it is important that it is actually a SMART goal. Specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. There are 168 hours in a 7-day week. If you take 24 times 7, you get 168. For me, about 164 hours are already accounted for in my week. Now, these estimates are worst case scenario. Obviously, I might have more or less than 4 hours in a given week. I have some weeks where I might have a break or a holiday, and then I have weeks off from school where I might not necessarily be actively in a semester. This is meant to be a guideline. It's not set in stone, but it's going to help keep me on track and make sure that the goals I'm setting are realistic to achieve even if the worst possible case happens. The first goal I have set for myself is to move into a new creative space by mid-April of 2021. To make this more specific, I defined relatively what size I need that space to be and what I want to use this space for. Now, this is where I spend about 90% of my day-to-day life, so it needs to be very functional and practical. It's going to have everything that I do, from full-time work, part-time work, school, hobbying, everything that I need to accomplish. I want to be in this room so that I have a great creative space to work in. I broke this goal down into subparts so that I have a plan and foundation for something to grow into. The first piece of this is going to be moving out of my existing apartment by early April so that I can move into this space in mid-April. We already have a space selected that should work really well for my needs. The next step of this is going to be planning out what this room is actually going to look like, either in a software or on a piece of paper. The last part of achieving this goal is going to be decorating this space with stuff that inspires me. Setting aside time to create my own artwork or find artwork from artists that I really like, and making this space feel really creative and warm. My next goal is to paint 25 tabletop minis by the end of 2021. For me, this is a pretty good number. There's 52 weeks in the year, and I'm going to estimate about 2 weeks to paint a single mini. That might seem like a lot of time to some people. Some people could probably say you could push yourself harder, but if I'm considering all these other hobby goals that I have, I need to be realistic. To specify this out, I'm also going to count towards this goal other crafts that are related to miniature hobbying, such as terrains, maps, different things like that aren't creating a mini, but are painting and crafting something related to miniatures. I also broke this goal down into 5 chunks of 5 minis so that I could have a relative time period for when I should have a certain target completed. My next goal is growing a community through this channel. So this one I broke down into 3 things: YouTube, Patreon, and Instagram. For YouTube, I'd like to release 20 videos next year, roughly 1 video every 2 weeks. Now, I would love to exceed this, but again, trying to be realistic and considering so far it's taking me about 12 to 15 hours to come with an idea, write a script, film, edit, render, and publish a single video. Thinking about that time period, I started to get a little bit worried about, wow, is 2 weeks a little bit too optimistic for me even, with the other things that I have planned and scheduled? But then I'm thinking a lot of my videos will likely overlap with other hobby goals that I have, so I think that is realistic. On Instagram, I'd like to post at least once per week. This post can really be anything. I want to keep that open-ended. I just want to make the goal that every week I'm going to post something to Instagram. If you were to look up marketing techniques and look up how to use Instagram, they're going to recommend that you follow a really rigid schedule, that you post X number per week, that you include certain tags and do certain things to your post. At one point, I got really consumed by that, and that takes up a lot of brain power, and honestly, it almost keeps me from doing the things that I want to do. I'm not going to stress myself out with it. I've got a lot of other things going on that can stress me out and can throw me off. So keeping this one kind of open-ended is really important to me. I would love to post at least 1 time per week to Patreon. News updates, a reflection on my week, ideas, polls. I want to provide value to these people, and I also want to nurture my existing community. So it's not just about growing the community, but the people that currently exist in my community, I want to nurture them and give back to them and strengthen them, because that's the purpose of doing Nerdic Inspiration. I want to inspire people. Goal number 4. Play more games with friends. Yes, that is super open and not smart or specific at all. Some specifics that I added to this were playing 2 new games next year. I've written down Asunder and Gloomhaven as 2 games that I would love to try, but those could always change. I also specified that I'd like to meet 5 new people. This is kind of a random number that I throw out there, but I feel like it's realistic to assume that if I were to go to a meetup or a game shop and try those 2 new games, maybe I could play them with 5 new people. The other sub goal that I have for this is meeting for our 3-hour time block every other week to play games with my existing friends that I play games with. Goal number 5 is reading 5 new fantasy books next year. Specifically reading. I am a big audiobook and podcast listener, not because I prefer those things, I rather read, but when I work out or I go for a walk or anything like that, it's easier for me to multitask. So this goal is specifically working that other muscle, working those other skills, and reading those books. I want to plan 20 minutes before bed every night to read. Other thing I'm going to do to avoid having excuses is have my list of fantasy books ready. So I do have 5 books already picked out that I would like to read next year. If that changes, I can always swap them out, but I have 5 ready, so I have no excuses to say I don't know what to read. If you're interested in those books, I'll have them in the description below so you can check out what I'm looking to read next year. The final goal is here, though it is probably the most daunting of all the goals that I have listed so far. Writing half of a fantasy novel next year, specifically 40,000 words is what I would call half of a fantasy novel. I have an idea for a book that originally was something that I thought about making into a game, and I don't know how I'm going to execute it. Learning how to do this would definitely be learning a new skill and doing something new that's really pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. I don't want to get ahead of myself. So right now, I'm just setting the goal that I want to become a better writer, and I want to learn and push myself to write possibly a novel. Let's see if it happens. I'm trying to set myself up for success with this, so I broke it down into a lot of parts. The first part being outlining my world. The second part is going to be outlining my characters. What are their features, their attributes, their character arcs. By the end of February, I want to have at least the main plot and some of the subplots figured out. The next piece of this is going to be actually writing. I want to do 30 minutes a day or 500 words a day. This is pushing me close to where I think it might not be obtainable, which is why I'm saying I might need to rework this goal a little bit and see how I feel about it. But I need to have enough time set aside that I can actually think through an idea and process something and then actually write it out. So I can't just say, 10 minutes. I don't think that that's going to be productive for me. So I do want to have at least a 30-minute chunk of time, which is why it might be a little bit better for me to say something like 500 words. I'm terrified about ever speaking this stuff into the universe because I don't want to be one of those people that says something like huge like this and then doesn't do it. I'm more so the type of person that wants to wait until it's like 95% there and then be like, okay, this is what I've been working on. Everybody's like, wait, what? So I really don't want to talk about this one, but I want to put out there that I have a goal of writing, okay? It's a goal to write things next year. I don't know what's going to come of it, but I'm going to write things. Yeah, don't at me. Strongly consider writing your own goals or using this as an inspiration for the goals in your new year. If you're interested in being part of a community that embraces raw, nerdy creativity at its finest, consider hitting that subscribe button. We'd love to have you. I'd really appreciate it. If you enjoy my content and want to consider supporting the channel, check out my Patreon link in the description below and consider following me on social media. Cool. The place where we paint. Why can't I do this today?